Okay, Linda, hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing? You doing all right?
Yes, doing really well, thank you. Good to see you.
Yes, yes, very good to see you. So here we are again doing one of our interviews.
I
I
know another
know
one. Yeah,
I know the last time we spoke was for your retirement.
yeah.
But actually this time what I'm wanting to find out a little bit more about is the 30-year history of
All right,
Southwick
yeah,
Christian Community Church,
yeah.
or at least the 24 years that you
Hmm.
were there. So really, I mean, I suppose the first question I've got to ask, I mean, what's the church achieved during that time that you've been there?
Well, I'm going to give you a brief resume. I can only do 24, 25 years, but I think Paul and others have done the very early days when I wasn't there. But I remember when I came to the church, I'd met Brian Pickard, who was the minister then, and we were training together at Roffey Place, and he invited me to become the associate pastor, which I did for part time to begin with. I think that was in around about 1998. And then we worked together for 10 years. I was taken on really to work in the community and in evangelism and world missions. So we had a vision to reach out to our community. He left after about 10 years, and then I became full time in 2009. So I'll just give you a bit of a overview of what we did. But I remember when we started off, we were meeting in the old church. That's before the new church was built. And my earliest memories, I think we began digging some foundations, and we do our services in the old church. And I remember vividly mice running across the church that had been dug up from from the earth, and people squealing and lifting their feet up. So it was all very quaint in those days. And I also remember next to the church, well, where the church now is, there was an old Nissen hut, which was like the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Mm.
And it was a very dismal building. It really needed revamping, and we did our best. And I remember Diane putting up very nice, bright coloured yellow and green curtains. But we started off with pretty dismal buildings, to be honest. Yeah,
So, I mean, I suppose there was a real need for better buildings, really, and
absolutely.
doing such a huge building project must have been a great challenge.
It was a really massive challenge of faith, but it was a great one. And, that was the bedrock of the church, living by faith. It was good. We did have people who knew about buildings, Brian and Paul Goury, I think he was a structural engineer, Brian, and also Tony James, who was a great treasurer. And he guided us through how we would pay all the money back because we got a loan. And I remember some fantastic gift days we had where we got in amazing amounts of money. Don't know where it all came from. We got grants from various places. I remember the joy when grants were given, very sacrificial giving. I remember the joy when we paid off the building a couple of years before our target date. And the target date, there was a lot of rejoicing, and it was great being part of all that. But of course, the building wasn't the end in itself. The building was there so that we could reach out to our community and, with the gospel. So, and I remember, a particular church meeting where we dreamed big dreams of how could we use our building to reach out to the community of Southwick. So we came up with some amazing ideas, which I can tell you about,
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
I'm curious. I mean, that sounds really
Yeah.
exciting. Like, what kind of things did you come up with?
Well, I remember, for some reason, I remember Charlie Davis. He came up with amazing ideas, but we felt that since we'd invested such large sums of money, we wanted to use our buildings, obviously for spiritual purposes, but also to bring our community in for recreational and educational and physical purposes. So we dreamed up and we started doing all sorts of activities that would attract the community in. We had things like exercise classes, we had computer training, we had our coffee
Wow.
shop, of course. We did creative arts, we did men's activities. So, we had this dream of inviting all the community in and having a whole range of activities from, I think, 0 to 99. So it would be something for everybody who could come in. So we had that, and we had all, of course, lots of children and youth activities at the time, right from babies up to youth.
Uh,
So we tried, to spread
yeah.
ourselves so that everybody would have something to come and be part of in the life of the church.
That's amazing. It's great
Mm,
to see that obviously the church had so many activities, in
mm,
that time, really.
yeah.
But one thing I will say is that I know the church has got a real kind of international
Yeah.
reach. it's got a real international team.
Yep.
What can I ask about part of that really, and what the vision was for the church from that international
Absolutely.
perspective?
Yeah. Well, as a church, we definitely believe that in the priesthood of all believers, we're good Baptists, so we believe that everybody in the church had a role to play, had a ministry. But there were a lot of things where we needed extra help, and quite a lot of that help, some of them came from the UK, but we had an amazing time when we welcomed people, young people mainly from countries like Belgium and Spain. I remember Josre from Spain. He played I think he played the oboe or the saxophone beautifully. We had Eduardo. He came from Brazil and he stayed. He was coming for 3 weeks and he stayed for 4 years, I think. And we had a Renla from Nagaland. I remember her. We had several from Hungary, and they all came and helped. And this, I think, has been a really important part of our 30 years, because you'll have noticed that Southwick is not very cosmopolitan. We're pretty, white. And and I felt it was very important that as a church, we would have an international perspective. So we don't think that Southwick's the center of the universe, but it was good to welcome people from overseas and also do mission trips to other countries. So over these 24, 25 years, we've done various mission trips to Zimbabwe, to Nagaland, to Belgium. Where else have we been? Oh, and a famous one when we went to Barbados. We did a mission to Barbados. Some of you will remember that. And that's where it was so hot there. The thing I remember there is we go in the sea every day because it's so hot.
Yeah.
And we go and lime in the sea. But while we were there, we would sing, and people would gather towards us each day, and they would come and sing with us. And eventually we planted the first church of the Caribbean Sea, and we sang and we prayed for one another.
Amazing.
And it was a great time. We also had a time when we've always seemed to have youth workers. I think we've always needed help with youth. And for a period of time, some of you remember, more recently, we had people from YWAM, and they came from all different nations of the world, and that was great. We had people from Argentina. Chantal, she came from Italy. She loves Shakespeare, and we did an amazing Shakespeare tea on the green. I remember that. And we had April, she came from America. So we've always had an international perspective and welcomed in people from overseas. So I think that's been a very important part of our life together. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like you've touched so many international parts, really. That's incredible. So I must ask though, like, in what other ways has the church engaged with the Southwick community kind of over the years? Like how's it engaged with that community over the time that the church has been there?
Well, I've always thought it was important. We've tried to use all our festival times to reach out and invite and try and do creative things, because we've had such creative people like Lorena and Bill and Chris and others. We've always been able to sort of creatively get the message of Easter and Christmas and over to people and welcome them in. We've got people who are musical, so we've done lots of musical events. When there's been events for the Queen, we've opened up the church and tried to do fun things so they could see that we have a whole view of life, not just spiritual, but we'll engage with everything. And also, whenever there's been activities in the community, we've tried to join in them. There's been fairs on the green and in Southwick Square at Christmas. And then also we've had a history of going into schools. We've had people going in and helping in schools. And more recently, we've gone in to do walk through the Bible. So that's taking the church out into community institutions and, of course, into care homes, which I'm still doing on behalf of the church. But that's important, reaching out to the Romans and Greenways and places like that. So we haven't just sat and welcomed people in. We've gone out and done as much as we could there. Yeah, so I think we've probably had I think we've got good standing in the community, and I hope that can continue for the next 30 years. And
do you think these activities have kind of borne spiritual fruit, really? Do you think it's,
Yeah, I'm looking at some spiritual fruit. Alongside these activities were not ends in themselves. They made connections, and then through them we can invite people into, spiritual activities, alpha groups. We've done Fresh Look, we've done Christianity Explored. We've tried all sorts of ways, and then just the relationships that were created, opportunities to talk to people, in the coffee shop, in exercise classes. And of course, I can look back over those years and think of many people who've come to faith and put their trust in Jesus and been baptized and are going on. And that's really the fruit of it. It's not activities for the sake of activities. It's people coming to faith in Jesus. So I think we've helped, many people over the years. And again, in the future, let's hope for many, many more.
Yeah. Well, I think there's just one final question I must ask. I'm kind of asking you a little bit on the spot here, but has there been one highlight really over the last however many years that you think, you know what, that's
there's been lots of highlights, but I think I've really enjoyed, going on mission trips to Jerusalem, Judea and Samaria, and uttermost ends of the earth. So I remember having teams of people in the jungle in Nagaland thinking, this is crazy, what are we doing here? But having wonderful experiences of God in those far-flung places. And for me, it's always going to be people like you who came to faith. That's really what it's about. Anybody who's come to faith over these last 30 years, if there was just one, it would be worth it. But there are many, and that's been a great joy to my heart and will continue to be as I hear about new people coming in the future.
Brilliant. Well, look, Lynda, thank you so much for your time. It's been lovely just finding out about just finding out about kind of your history in the church and whatnot. So just as I said, thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you again soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot. God bless everyone. Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye.